outside? Should I run and hide? How do I take my company worldwide? Do you love the law? Did you watch Hee-Haw? What's the weirdest thing that you ever saw? What's it like in court? Favorite sport? Can you help with my book report? Is my hair too long? Am I right or wrong? And do you mind if I sing along to anything? Ask Alan anything in the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Ask Alan, the podcast. I'm Alan Crone, CEO of the Crone Law Firm. And today we've got a very famous guest, Kontji Anthony, one of the anchors of Action News 5, Channel 5 here in Memphis, Tennessee. Kontji, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm quite excited to be on your show. I've seen your podcast and you're quite a decorated attorney. And, I'm just really excited.
You're very nice. I appreciate it. You class up the joint. There's no doubt about that. Well, tell me what it's like, and tell our listeners what it's like to be a TV anchor. I would imagine most of us think that's very glamorous, but I know it's a lot of hard work.
Oh my goodness,
people like?
Have no idea. I mean, for example, when I was a reporter, because now I mostly anchor, but I would buy really, really inexpensive shoes, because you might show up at City Hall and 1 second you're interviewing the mayor and then you get a phone call and there is something in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere and you're walking, you don't want to be in your heels in mud. So, I mean, it's just, you don't know what you're going to be doing any given day. Your days change. You don't know who you're going to be talking with. You meet lots of interesting people. You're there when things are happening. You get to hear the stories firsthand. And, we're immersed in, reading newspapers, digital, and also, social media, everything that's coming in there. We just have a lot of contact with the public, and a lot of people kind of from all these different sources are telling you what's going on. And then you bring those issues to the newsroom, and then we all meet and decide, which has the most impact, on the largest amount of people. So it's really busy. It might be 2 a.m. and I'm getting a text message. It might be 8 a.m. There's a car accident, or there's been an arrest, or you just never know what it's going to be. But it's very, very your time is, you are always on.
Do you get a chance to do stand-up reporting these days?
I sure do. I'm what they call a working anchor. I actually do write. I write stories, and their specials are called 5-star stories, and they air every week at 2 p.m. at 10 p.m. And they're basically stories that showcasing things that make us happy to live in the Mid-South. And
things that make Memphis.
Yes, you've seen it. Yes,
I've seen it.
Yeah. So, I actually go out and that's my dog Stax. He doesn't know who I'm talking to. Hi, everybody.
No, Stax.
Yeah, Stax, as in Stax Records. Yeah.
There you go.
Viewers named him.
What kind of dog is he?
He's Red Heeler Yellow Lab.
Oh, okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Those are good dogs. All dogs are good dogs.
They are. Yeah. So.
All right. So we were talking offline, and you told me that you were from a very famous location in New York State, New Rochelle, New York. And all right, now I'm gonna play a little game. And I want everybody out there to tell your computer, just, you can't communicate with us, unfortunately, who is the other famous resident of New Rochelle, New York. We'll give them a minute, and then Kontji, you can tell them the answer. So everybody's guessing. Okay, now tell them.
Alan knew. Alan knew. Okay, he's the one who said it, and it was Dick Van Dyke from the
Dick Van Dyke and his wife Laura lived in New Rochelle, New York. Yeah. Although before we were talking, if you asked me, I probably would have guessed Connecticut, but I knew New Rochelle. So
that I'm from Connecticut.
No. That New Rochelle was in Connecticut.
Okay, well, you know what? It's right there. It's literally, I used to go shopping there, so it's that close.
Does the town take ownership of the Dick Van Dyke Show in any
Oh
way?
yeah. I mean, well, you know what? We should have something. We don't have anything there that's like, Dick Van Dyke. But it's something, it's trivia, that we know and we share it with others.
So are you a big fan of the show?
I did watch, well, I watched I was a little too young to kind of really, really know what was going on, but I just remember watching him falling all over things, and and they'd be like, they're in New Rochelle, and it's pretty much here's Manhattan, and here's Connecticut, and I'm like right there.
That's a scale.
Yeah, so like I'd say 2/3. Here's Manhattan.
Yeah.
Go 2/3 up. That's me, and then there's Connecticut.
Okay. All right.
But it was so cool because like my school trips were to Radio City Music Hall, and the Statue of Liberty. Those were that's where I would go on my school trips. So it was really neat to live so close to the epicenter of the financial world and the world alike. But also to have, just kind of a suburban setting where there were lakes, bunnies, and streams. So I have to thank my parents for doing that.
Well, when I was in school, we went to the Wonder Bread factory.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, so you went.
That's so delicious.
So you went to Radio City Music Hall. I went to Wonder Bread. So
No, Wonder Bread is literally the foundation of my life. PB&J's with, I don't cut off the edges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wonder Bread is everything, and I'm so sad because I remember the smell of Wonder Bread when I would drive through when I first came here, and now it's gone. But I'm so excited for the development that is coming there, and all of the construction downtown. It's amazing.
I drive down Union. I live near Chickasaw Gardens. I always say if my house were across the street in Chickasaw Gardens, it would be so expensive it wouldn't even speak. It would completely shun me. But that's kind of the area where I live, and so I drive down Union most days to come to work. And even during the pandemic, just watching all of the development, and the ravine is going to be awesome when it really gets activated along with the Edge District. Going to be unbelievable.
And Union Square, I'm just like, I look and I'm like, ooh, I just can't wait. I just love, just from the first day I got here to now, so much has happened to make this a great place to live.
So how long have you been in Memphis?
16 years, sweet 16, Alan.
Oh, wow.
Sweet 16.
So you feel like you've made a complete adjustment to the Mid-South?
Oh, 100%. So think about this. I went to college at age 17. I lived in, New Rochelle, New York until I was 17 years old. Then I went to Washington, D.C. at age 17, where I went to Howard University. And when I think about it, I've almost lived here as long as I lived in my hometown.
Wow, that's true.
Who knew?
Yeah. It's funny how life, the eddies and currents of life will take you all kinds of different places.
Yeah, but I love it here, and it's the longest I've lived in any. I've been that nomadic news person, living in several cities and working in every time zone of America. And I came here, and I haven't even applied for a job anywhere else.
Well, so growing up in close proximity to Manhattan, did that influence you to want to get into journalism? How did middle school Kontji Anthony decide, hey, we thinking about it then, or did that develop later in life?
It did. It came early. Okay, so honestly, I was just all over the place. I had so many things I wanted to be an architect. I wanted to be an artist. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a computer programmer. Then I wanted to be, tennis player. And I didn't, all these different things. I would get bored as I was, getting deeper into it. And we had a TV station at my high school. And so I did that. And it involves, you're both technical, because you have to understand the equipment. you have to know your math, like you have to, reading and math are huge. But then it's also this technical world. And so it just challenged my personal, me personally. And so when I did TV in high school, I decided to study communication. So when I was in college, I ended up taking all those courses. And afterwards, I wanted to write sitcoms. I have a secret funny bone. Like I love like that half hour, well, it's 22 minutes, the 22-minute format. I just love sitcoms. And so I wanted to do that. But when I got out of school, I did my applications, and I ended up at WCBS in Manhattan, which was part of my schooling in college. So I wanted to be a writer, but now I'm writing about real people. So it's very interesting.
That is interesting. My daughter is a junior at DePaul, and she's
Nice.
majoring in comedy filmmaking.
Oh, stop.
And she would like to.
Oh.
Proud papa, I gotta tell you, her response to my wife asked her one day, well, what do you really want to do? And she said, I'm not sure. I just want to make people laugh.
Oh.
I just thought that's just such a great answer and a great outlook that for your career is for it to be about other people. And
altruism. Yeah, she has an altruistic heart. That's beautiful.
Yes.
And that's natural. Because, if that was her response, that means there's somewhere like in her for her to be that giving. It's beautiful. And laughter is, that's universal.
Yes.
So.
Well, she's smart. She takes after her mother. So we're all very thankful about that. Okay. So that's pretty wild. So you started out in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And now, did you do any interning in college in DC?
Yeah, I was at WUSA, the CBS there, Channel 9. And so, I was able to go into a TV station, see what that's like. And then I also interned at Black Entertainment Television. So I would work on their TV shows. Teen Summit was the show that I worked on. And, I got to see how it was done on a network level. And then I got to see how it was done in Washington, D.C. But when I hit New York, that was like the city, because we call it the city.
Yeah.
It was just a whole different ball of wax.
That city never sleeps.
Trust me, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I hear.
That's just like the word around town, You're funny. It is, though. That is our saying.
Yeah. And so how long were you at in Manhattan at that station?
I was there for a year and a half, and it was such an honor. They made me a staff member, right? So there were people who were working there for like 20, 30 years, and I know they hated me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to become a staffer, but there were, per diems there, and they hired me as a staffer. And I was just like, I could have really been there my entire life and just stayed there and done that. But some of my coworkers they were trying to be sports anchors, and I was the overnight girl from midnight to 4 a.m. And they were like, we need someone to run our teleprompter, and you're going to be there, because they would do it behind, where no one was there. So they were like, one of them was like, why don't you just go ahead and make a reel? And I was like, what? And like, he was like, do it, just do it. And so I put on a red suit and red lipstick and blow dried my hair, because I used to wear it big and curly, and I just blow dried it, put this reel together. And the first city that called me was Memphis.
Is that right?
Yes. And then they found out I was just a desk assistant, and they were like, you don't have enough experience for Memphis. So I ended up going to Ottumwa, Iowa, where I carried my 60 pounds of equipment, shot myself. What?
Now, who is a famous resident of Ottumwa, Iowa?
Well, it happens to be a comedian.
Okay.
So we're gonna play trivia again. I know because you obviously said this. I'm gonna say this, that there is a certain person who built a home with another famous comedian. They were married, and then they left the shell of the home in the town. It was huge. This massive, it was just wood, and it was just sitting there after they divorced. Okay, everybody, I gave you enough time. I'm going to tell you, or are you going to tell me?
All right. I know the answer, but I was actually thinking of somebody else, but go ahead.
Tom Arnold.
That's right.
I interviewed him. He would come to town. So he, he was really nice. Really nice. But I wonder, like what it took to demolish that home that they started and just like, yeah.
The person I was thinking of,
Who?
Radar O'Reilly, is from Autumna, Iowa.
So wait a minute, is that what I'm doing? Did I say Radar for MASH was from, so in my narrative in my head, we were talking before this, Radar for MASH is from Ottumwa. And that is why I was trying to let people know, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
But you're right, the Roseanne Barr and Arnold.
Tom Arnold. Yeah, but there was a pig farm there, and you could smell, like, you knew when it was slaughter day because it kind of smelled like bacon. It, like rolling hills, and it was just really, I went from New York City to the middle of Iowa. It was fascinating.
How big a town is Ottumwa?
Just thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really small.
All right, so you continue to claw your way up the dial. Where was your next posting?
California. That was really fun because I had some college buddies out there who lived in LA, and so I was in Bakersfield, and that's when I didn't have to shoot my own stories. I had my own photographer, and then I went to pardon. Oh, you're right, photojournalist. You're right, because when you put the journalists in there, they are telling stories with the camera completely, and yeah, there's a difference. And so then I was reporting all that time, and then I went to become an anchor in a smaller market in North Carolina, and then I came here.
Wow. Well, all that prepares you, right? Because you're going from larger market to larger market, finally to the top, which is Memphis, Tennessee.
It is the top, yes. It didn't prepare me. There was a lot more for me. The complexity of this community, I was not ready for it, honestly. There's something, the poverty here makes every story you're doing have a layer. And then I even think the history of, Dr. King losing his life here, there's something that never went away when that happened that has now textured everything that everybody does. And so when you're doing a story, you have to think about all these perspectives, because this thing happened and all these people have a different view of what it was. And so and then you have Elvis here, and so it's like there's so much texture here, and the things that make it textured and painful in some ways are also kind of the source of beauty in another way, where, for example, you have, music, they call it the blues, right? And so you're trying to find a way to maybe cope with something that's going on. You create music, right? Or food. What's interesting is when you think of the enslaved, that people who had to, they ate the parts of the that, I guess, the home where they were enslaved, they ate the parts that were discarded. And so what came with that was different seasonings and different ways to prepare things that we would not have now, or without that experience. So anyway, there's so many layers that I was not prepared for, coming from the Northeast. However, my mom is from Lorman, Mississippi, where Alcorn State is located. And so I would go to the farm there every year and run from the cows.
Well, I think you're right about the complexity of Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
But that's to borrow a phrase from Channel 5, that's what makes Memphis Memphis, and what makes it so just wonderful to live here, because there's an authenticity about Memphis that we haven't lost, and I hope we never lose it.
It's so true. I remember coming into town, and then I would see, those tours. They're in an, oh gosh, I can't remember. This is Anna Marie Hartman's husband. I can't believe I'm losing his name, but you'll see a tour going on in an old car, or you'll see, you'll look at some places and you'll say, you know what, that's never changed. That was here years and years and years ago. And so you feel like you're in a time warp in some sense. And then in other places, there's so much development. And like when I'm driving, I can think of something I've reported on or some type of historic moment literally on every corner that I drive, in town.
Well, that raises a question. I'll either ask you, what's the biggest story you ever covered, or what's your favorite story you ever covered in Memphis? I don't want to.
The biggest story. Oh no. Okay. So my favorite story was one where I just I knew that there was love in the world. There was a Katrina evacuee, a mom, and she had her child who was at St. Jude, but was at the end of her treatment, but she couldn't go back to New Orleans because the air was bad. So she didn't know what to do. I do this story, you see this little baby, and literally the next morning, a term I learned here, Memphians showed up and showed out. Basically, they put her up in an apartment. Nurses were offering little time slots where they could watch her baby so that she could go get a job, because she was employable. And then her entire place got furnished. And I was just like, the impact, to know that you could write this story and that many people would call and say, I've got to help this woman. It just was so beautiful. So that was so beautiful. And I think the biggest story I ever did, honestly, was when Senator John Ford left prison and he did his one and only interview, TV interview with me. So I just thought that, it's the unlikely interviews that I never expected that he would ever go on camera, and so when I asked and he said yes, I was like, this is okay, but that was just a really big story.
Yeah, I know that
at the time.
I know that John Ford doesn't come without a whole lot of controversy and baggage, but there are very few politicians that had a bigger positive impact on Memphis and Shelby County in Nashville than John Ford. He was a very effective legislator for us.
What I'd heard, from people who worked around him was that he was the person who would get the packet and read the packet. And so he apparently knew everything inside and out, because sadly there are people, well, I'll tell you, you get inundated, because I was a city hall, county commission reporter, state, city, county, state for 10 years here. And so you get packets and packets of information, but it is, you're saying that I'm going to read this and I'm going to, do this and vote on it. And apparently not everybody reads. But he that was apparently his secret sauce was reading the materials.
He was prepared. He's a hard work. He's a hard worker. I'm used the past tense. He's very much alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I imagine that was a pretty that was a big get for you or any reporter.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, for me, no matter who I'm interviewing, they're people first. I don't, I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm here to say, what happened during that moment in time? How did you feel? Why did you make this decision? And those are curiosities that we as people have, in just human life as we're walking through the earth. If you're a person who likes to sit at the airport and kind of watch people go by and you're like, ooh, I think that's a nurse, or I think, that person's living a double life, you have all these questions about what makes people tick. And so that's really what it's about. It's not about judging. And no person, I believe, is all bad, except for Ted Bundy.
Except for what?
I said Ted Bundy. I'm just,
Oh.
no, there are certain people that I'm like, okay, that's like, I don't know what that is. And that it's hard for me. That's when the news gets hard, is when I can't understand a person's motivation because it's so heinous that it just like, so it's like children, animals, senior citizens, those are off limits, and that is when I just like, I mean, sometimes like I don't cry like I used to, but I would come home or I'd be in between newscasts or like, just like, why?
Well, Kontji, who are the big influences in your life? I know that your parents were big influences. Looking back now, who formed you? Who shaped you to be who you are now?
I can't believe you actually called it. It's really my mom and dad, when it comes down to it, because, okay, so my dad, 53-year entrepreneur, he owned a company in in Westchester County, but he Manhattan was his core, where he did the core of his work, and then there was Connecticut, New Jersey. So he had this very successful business, and the thing with him was he was such a hard worker. I mean, he would wake up at 3 a.m. and get home at 8 p.m. I hate that that's all he did, but he was such a hard worker. And so he taught me work ethic. And that was amazing. My mom said that when he started out, he would bring, so basically they would, so restaurants, commercial restaurants, he had a crew of technicians who would go out and maintain their equipment. Donald Trump was one of his clients. But yeah, so he did like the Waldorf, he did some of the top places. And she said he would come home with a piece of equipment and take it apart and put it back together. She's like, what are you doing? Like, and my mom is a neat freak, so it was not cool. But that's why he was so good at what he did. And then my mom, she's dogged. She's that lady who, when she first retired, she's the one who got the lights up in her neighborhood, because there were no lights, and she got the city to, put lights up. And, it's just, she's that person who will follow things through to the end and do what she says she's going to do. They both did. So there are these qualities that I was growing up with that I didn't realize were so valuable until I realized, oh, people will tell you they'll do something and then they don't do it. Like, what? Oh, okay, I didn't know.
That's a thing?
Or, just these things. It's a thing. So I'm so thankful for that. And then everyone else was just kind of like the icing, and I'll be honest, when you're a news reporter as a female, I think there's kind of like that, beauty pageant thing. Mm-hmm. Kind of happens where, there's no one who's going to be like, no, there's not that there's no one who's going to help you. There are people who help you, but there's kind of maybe a limit,
It's very competitive.
It's very competitive. But then there was this news anchor in New York, Dana, and she would look at my stuff and critique it and send it back to me. And so there are people out there, but there was no one set person in broadcasting who was like hands-on, like, this is how you do this.
In law school, in every law school in the country, there's a guy or a girl, there's somebody that will go and find the book you need for an important assignment that the whole class needs and hide it. And it's that kind of thing.
What? Wait a minute. I need more information on that. What are you talking about?
There'll be every.
They want the edge?
Yeah, they want the edge. Usually happens in the first year. And because, it's all graded on a curve. And so they'll go and they do it like they invented it. And they go and they take the book and they hide it and just make it harder on people to.
Are these people?
Now, that probably doesn't happen now because there's no such thing as books anymore. But that's what people would do when I was in law school, and that was a long time honored tradition. So, and unfortunately, I think you have to be older than in your 20s to realize that to succeed others need not fail. And once you
Right.
get to that point and can mentor people, so life is so much easier when you're
Yeah.
just looking out for yourself. And I don't mean looking out for yourself, but when you're just minding your own business as opposed to trying to torpedo other people.
Yeah, and so like, and that's why, like, for me, I have 3 sisters. Like, I'm not, it's not like I don't like the catty thing. So I have made it a thing where I have a lot of people who call and will ask for that kind of stuff, and we'll meet and talk. But I remember one time I heard about somebody putting water in somebody's hairspray.
No, no.
This was like in New York when I was there. I was like, wow.
Not in Memphis.
Never,
Not in
no, I didn't have any of that.
I wonder what the Memphis equivalent, I probably get in trouble thinking about that, but what the Memphis equivalent of that would be. But all right, well, Kontji, you've just been doing a great job on the anchor in the news. And my family and I really enjoy watching you. I always tell this story when I get a chance. But Channel 5 is a special station. When I was chairman of the Republican Party, I could do a full-blown interview on any of the other stations. And I'd get a call or two. Hey, I saw you, whatever. This is no joke. In 1996, at a Dole Kemp rally, the back of my head was on television. And I was inundated with calls. Oh, I saw you on Channel 5. I saw you on Channel 5. All they saw was the back of my head. And I always thought that's a testament to the power that Channel 5 has in Memphis. And I don't think it's gone down any since 1996.
Thank you. It is such a joy. And I mean, Joe Birch is really just so rare. If people knew what a good guy he was, I just, he's just one of the most giving and kind souls. I mean, for example, this is something I've never said to anyone, but there are times when there are people in need who have come outside of the station because they know he helps. It's literally, and they'll wait for him. I don't know if I should say that, because I don't want him to. He just helps so many people. I don't want him to be inundated, but yeah. I mean, it's to the point where people just know he has his deeds and his actions they're beautiful. It's really, and it's been amazing to see that. And he's helped to shape, my understanding of what this role is. And, and I get it. I feel like it is 80% community and then 20% broadcasting, because you can't really be on TV all day, right? So when you're not on TV, nothing is always about a story. Most of the time, the calls I get are me linking someone up with the right person so that they can get action, or me just calling down and saying, hey, this issue is going on. They don't know who to call, but I know who to call. So that's what my life is, really just helping people maneuver their everyday lives so that they can live more comfortably. And, before we end this, I don't know when we're ending this, but I want you to think about this if you have one more question. I see that, I see you're a voracious reader, so I wanted to know your favorite book.
Oh, my favorite book. Well,
in the world.
I've got so many. I'll tell you that one of the books that had the most profound influence on me it's a short story by Isaac Asimov. It's called The Naked Sun, and I think it's particularly interesting these days. It's about a detective from Manhattan who is science fiction, so he's on another planet.
Love sci-fi is my favorite. Okay.
Another planet, and the planet is the whole planet is a bunch of farms, and all of the people live in the middle of their farm, and their farms are huge. It's all mechanized. And there's a murder. It's the first murder that's ever taken place, and he has to solve it. And they all talk to each other via hologram. And so the big mystery is, how did somebody get into this person's house? And there are lots of contours to it, but it really does delve into the importance of community and the importance of physical contact, interpersonal contact, shaking hands, being in the same room with people. And because he goes from Manhattan, which at that point is, way overcrowded, to this isolation. And it's the first time he's ever seen the sun or a sun in the sky. And so that's one of my favorite. And I tell you, one of my most recent things that I've really enjoyed reading is there's a guy, Robert Harris, who writes a lot of really interesting historicalized fiction and historical novels. And he wrote a series on Cicero. And Cicero is now one of my heroes because of those books. But it's a trilogy. So those are probably my top two.
I like to know because I like to read as well, and so I don't know why Stax is.
Stax does not like Asimov. He decided, I've read it. Foundation series not great. All right, Stax. Before I get bitten through virtually, maybe we ought to take that as our cue. But Kontji, I really have enjoyed talking with you. It's been very interesting. We'll have to have you back sometime to continue the conversation because it's been great. And I want to thank everybody for watching or listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, and let's be honest, we learned about Radar O'Reilly and Dick Van Dyke and Joe Birch. That's quite a trilogy in and of itself. And so please share us on social media, email this to somebody that you think would enjoy it. And Kontji is going to go about reporting what makes Memphis, Memphis. And I'm going to go get some justice. So thank you all very much.